Debbie, it's what, today's the 14th of December? Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you a few questions because
Sure.
I'm really curious as to what it is that you do. So my first question is exactly that. What is it that you do?
Well, I do a combination of things. I'm an intuitive and a medium. Intuitive is like a psychic, but I say intuitive. And I do energy work, and I do different types of energy work, not just one type. And I incorporate them into the session if that's what, depending on what the person's there for. So some people are coming just to connect to somebody who's passed on, but if it's a one-on-one, I always like to include the energy work for them because it's good for them. It's healing. It's just, whether it's an emotional healing or physical healing, it helps them. Plus, it helps them process what I'm saying. But I also do, help people in their life when they're trying to make changes in their world. I don't tell them what to do. I open them up to seeing the bigger picture of what they can do.
Now, some people don't like being called a psychic, or they say that they're a sensitive, or an intuitive, or a medium. Do you have any bias as to, do you care? You can call me Ray, you can call me, how do you style yourself as?
I don't usually say psychic because I don't want people to think I'm the lady with the crystal ball, that type of thing,
it has the pejorative
so,
sense, right? Yeah.
I usually say intuitive, intuitive in a medium. And it kind of depends on who you're around, who you're talking to. Because some people are, will think you're a woo-woo lady, and I don't see it like that. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, how do you experience what you do? Is it auditory? Is it visual? I mean, do you smell things? Is it sensing? I mean, what do you experience?
I experience a lot of those. A lot of times for me, it's a knowing. It's a knowing. It's a feeling. I will get physical feelings. Like if I'm connected to somebody who's passed on, I will get different parts of my body that I'll feel things like if all of a sudden I'll feel the pressure in my chest or something, and I'll be able to say to them the person had a heart issue or whatever. A lot of times it's funny, if I'm working on a woman, I can tell when they're pregnant, even if they're not showing yet, because I know it's not me, so
right.
I can feel a lot in my body, whether it's for the person I'm working on or the person who's passed. And I do hear voices at times. I've been able to see like clear pictures of people who've passed. It depends. It depends.
So every time around, or with a different client, it's a different package each time, or do you have to tune in specifically to try and find some connection or some spirit, or it just bubbles up and you catch it?
I just kind of let it flow. I mean, I always have the knowing. It always does come through as a knowing. And the easiest way to explain it, it's that inner voice. It's like many times I feel like I've been told it already, even though I wasn't. Like in the past, before I even did this for work, I remember saying something to somebody, and this happened many times, and they'd say, "How do you know that?" I go, "You told me." And they go, "No, I didn't." I go, "But I was so sure they told me because it felt like I had heard it before, but they had never told it to me." So it was just a knowing. So now I understand it. Where back then I would argue with somebody and say, "No, you told me that."
But do you have to work hard to get into a particular zone? Or do you have to? You just turn it on, or it's always there, or do you have to turn it off? I mean, as you're wandering around in your quote normal life.
Yeah. My thing is when I'm working, I ask Spirit to come through. I ask them to help me with each client I'm going to work on for the highest good of that person. I more or less do a little prayer and my little mantra to ask for them to come through.
But you don't have a whole big induction that you have to sit in the dark room for 20 minutes and mumbo jumbo.
It's like 2 seconds, yeah. And then at the end, when I'm done, I'm done. Then I have to be a mother and I got to go do my things. And like if I'm out in the grocery store, there's no way I'm walking around reading people. I could care less. I got my own things to think about. And or if I'm out having dinner or wine with my friends, I want to read them. I don't want to read anybody. And people will say things like, "Don't you know this?" And I'm like, I really don't care. I'm out. I turn it off. I don't.
You do, so you can.
You do. You still may get senses of things, but it's none of my business if it's other people. It's not. I don't tap into it. I let it go. I mean, I'll get warnings, and I'll just use those warnings as, okay, that's a warning for me not to do this or not to go near that person or whatever. But I won't go telling people things. I think that's unethical. So.
Well, who or what do you think you're in communication with?
I
Is that something that you came up with yourself, or did you learn that, or did other people mentor you in this? I mean, or you just had that feeling that this is...
I've never really learned. I've never gone really to learn. I mean, this is just something I did since I was a little girl, never understanding what it was. And I was told when I was probably 20 years old that I was considered a natural medium. And I had no idea what that was. And I didn't want it. I was like, well, I don't want that. But things would happen. But I wasn't really ever taught how to do it or what to do with it. It just seemed very natural. And for many years, I would pray for him to take it away. I would ask God, just take it away. I don't want to be this. I don't want to know things. As a teenager, some of my friends didn't want to talk to me because I would know things and they would get spooked out, But as I got older, I realized that I could use it in a good way, and it did, and it helped me in my life when I was going through real hard times. It gave me strength. It gave me faith. I had such faith. And I just believed, and
But not in a religious dogma sense. I mean,
No.
not within the constraints of any one particular religion.
no, I mean,
This is more...
yeah, I grew up Catholic. I do believe in Jesus and the Blessed Mother and all that, and I do call them in when I do work on my clients. But it's just it's like my mantra. But I just see them there as their unconditional love around me.
So you think that you are it is a spirit contact, I mean, this essential spirit, but could it possibly be telepathy? Could you be
Yeah.
like reading, I mean, is it a mixture, or is it one or the other? Do you really think that there's something out there that you're tapping into? Or are you, in a much closer sense, just tapping into, say, your client, you and me, reading me, or is it coming from out there?
See, I feel like it comes from within. That's a good question. I feel it comes from within. But I know I can telepathically pick up things. I remember working on a boy who was in a coma, and I telepathically was connecting to him, and he was telling me things, and
Did you have to work at that
no,
connection?
no, I just walked in there. He was in intensive care, and right away he was connecting with me. We were talking, and
This is all mentally.
yeah, and I just started talking to his mom, and it made no sense to me, but to her it made complete sense. And actually, I went to touch him to do energy work on him, and I started passing out, and the monitor started beeping, and I started passing out, but I felt like a vacuum just pulled everything through me to him. And I was able to give his mom messages of where he was at
At the time.
in that space, yeah. And it was very, very emotional. But,
Must have been
that
very
was-
draining, is it? I mean,
that day it was for me, because I just kind of went in with it, not thinking, I didn't even know what I was going into. A friend asked me to please come with her to see her friend's son who'd been in a terrible accident, and I wasn't even thinking. I was like, oh, all right, I don't know what I could do, but I'll go in, and I did energy work, and that's what But as soon as I walked in, he was like telepathically saying to me, "You and I are alike." You and I'm like, "No, we're not." I don't it just didn't make sense to me.
And you didn't know him beforehand?
No, I'd never met him. And he
Wow.
was showing me things that we were connecting. It was wild. And come to find out, he was going to school to be a barber. The same area I was at his age. I was going to school to be a barber. It was wild. His accident was on the same highway area that I always traveled to go to school.
Wow.
We had it was, just a lot of things. Once I found out about him, I'm like, oh, I guess we are alike. But and
Did
I
he survive? Did he get out of the coma? Or?
he lived many years. They told his mom he probably would not live through the night. And I said to her, he has to make the choice, because he showed me telepathically. He showed me the light, and he showed me that he could be where there would be no pain. But he also showed me that if he lived, there'd be a struggle. And he was like, show my mom, tell my mom I see the light, tell my mom what I see. And I remember saying to his mom, he has to make the choice of whether to live or pass. He can't stay for you. And I felt like, and she just wanted him so bad, of course, as a mother, to stay,
Yes.
And I said to her, you have to love him enough to let go. Let him make the choice, because he chooses to live, he's not going to be the same as what he was, but it's his path, and he has to go through it. It's his journey. But if he, so it has to be his choice. And he showed me different things so that she knew it was him communicating. He showed me, I'm trying to remember because this was a long time ago. It was like a pendant or something on the wall, and it was to do with his heritage. And I guess she validated that he had this on his wall, some type of a pendant or flag to do with. I think they were I know they were Portuguese. And he showed me what her bedspread looked like, what his room looked like, so that she knew he was communicating.
Target, yeah.
He showed me things that happened to him as a little boy, and it was beautiful. She said, she said, we talked, and I did a little energy work on her, and she said, because at first she's like, no, I can't let go. And she did, and he chose to live.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, and I went and I used to work on him. It was funny because I would go to visit him at night after I'd worked on my clients.
While he was still in a coma, or was he recovering?
Yeah, he was still in a coma. And I said to her, he's going to walk again. And she was like, Debbie, they told me he'll never walk. I said, he'll walk before his next birthday. And I said, you'll get some good news on the next snowfall. And when I would go and work on him, it was funny, there was a man in the next bed who was in a coma too. And I would be trying to connect to this boy, Chris. And I was picking up what this guy was saying. His fiance was in there. They were like, she was yelling at him, like, you need to get out of this. And I'm picking up what he's saying back to her, like, it wasn't very nice. But, so it was funny. But I remember his mom called me one day and she said, Debbie, they came in because they told her he'd be nothing but a vegetable. He would never, not to give to more or less give up. And he would always have a trait because he had brain damage, he had intestinal damage, he had, he was a mess. And she said the doctors came in one day and said he can go to rehab, and she looked outside and it started snowing. And,
wow.
And I think it was, I may not have this completely straight, the people that were bringing him, the paramedics that were bringing him to the rehab were the same ones that picked him up from the highway and were shocked that he was alive. I think that's how, I don't have it, it's so long ago. Yeah. And he did end up going home with no meds, no trach, and he did walk. They would hold on before his birthday. His parents were on each side of him. Yeah.
That's so interesting. That's a lovely story.
Yeah. He just passed away a couple months ago, and I want to say he lived 13 years.
Wow, close that. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Well, when and how did you first experience this? I mean, as a kid, or do you remember the first time? Was it frightening? I mean, how did this all go down?
It was very frightening. When I was little, I used to be in bed and I used to see like these little people at the end of my bed. Like,
oh God!
It was.
You sure it wasn't indigestion or anything?
Yeah,
else?
really. But it was more of the feeling. Like I could see like the shapes at the end of the bed, but it was this feeling of it like taking over me. It was like a suffocating feeling. I was afraid because I didn't understand it.
How old were you? Do you remember?
I was probably about 4.
Wow.
And I would call my mother into the room, and she would get upset because she'd say, "There's nothing in here," and she'd say, "Just say your prayers, go to sleep, you'll be fine. Just say your prayers."
Sounds like a mother. Yeah.
And every night I would not go to sleep without, to this day, without saying my prayers because I would beg for for that protection to stay around me. But eventually, I understood it better. But I grew up with a poster of Jesus on one wall, Black Sabbath on the other wall.
Yeah, that's quite a dichotomy.
Yeah.
What did your family, was any of this ever in the family? I mean, did they have any frame of reference?
No, not that I know of. My mother used to tell me not to talk about it. And I think they were just afraid because they didn't understand it. And one time when I used to have this dream about this little girl all the time, and she couldn't talk, but it was telepathically. She would always be motioning me up to this 3rd floor. And where I grew up, there was a 3-family house we lived in. Then there was my grandparents' house, and then our house. But originally, before my father built our house, we lived in that 3-family house. Before my grandparents lived in their house, they had lived in the 3-family house. So this 3-family house has a lot of history, And in the dream, they were always calling me up to the 3rd floor. This little girl. It was like a munchkin. She was older, but she was little. And
did she resemble anybody in the family? Did you ever figure out who this was?
Not at the time. I did after, but she'd motion me up to the 3rd floor. And like 3 or 4 times after I had the dream, I was sitting there and she was just patting my hand, just telling me to let everybody know she was okay. It made no sense to me. The next day I was at my grandmother's house. I was young. I was 12, 13. And she opens up her cedar chest and she pulls out this picture of this little girl. And it was the little girl in my dream. And I was like, oh my God, who is that? And she said, that's my daughter, Jean. She died when she was 5.
You're kidding.
She said, you're named after her because it was my middle name. And she said, but she never could speak. The only thing she could say was mama. And I ran, I got scared. And I didn't say anything to my grandmother.
You didn't tell her?
No, because I was afraid. And I didn't want her to think I was a weirdo, you know. And I adored my grandmother. I didn't want her to be, so I ran home and told my mother, and she said, don't ever talk about that again. She said, we don't talk about that. And,
really?
Yeah. And just before my mother passed on, she said to me, she said, remember that dream you used to always have about Jean? And I said, and she goes, I have to tell you, what you have is real. Your gift is real. And she said, when I was a teenager, my job every day was to walk. I guess my aunt was in a wheelchair. She was crippled. And she said, I used to have to walk her up the top of the hill and down. She goes, I hated doing it. I wanted to go play and hang out with my friends. She said, when she died, she used to always call me up the hill. She goes, I would never go. She goes, you made it. And it was the first time that I felt accepting of what I did, of what, what I had. And after my mom passed, I told my grandparents about it. And it was the one and only time I saw my grandmother cry. And she said to me, I always wanted to know she was okay. Thank you.
Oh,
So,
wow.
So that's when I was like, all right, maybe this isn't a bad thing.
Yeah,
maybe this is okay.
definitely.
You know?
That's very
Yeah.
healing in itself.
Yeah.
My goodness. Well, have you ever sensed evil in any of your perceptions? I mean, are there malevolent things around?
Well, I think there's a negative and a positive in everything, but I don't think the negative has power unless you give it power. I feel we're of white light. Light is stronger than dark. But yes, back when I was in my very early 20s, I did have an experience with this creature thing in my room, and I think what had happened was I didn't understand mediumship. I didn't understand what I had, and she was playing with, things were happening. And she was a psychologist, and she was a client of mine. I was cutting hair back then, and I was telling her these things, and she became very curious. So she used to have me come over. She'd put things in my hand, and I could tell her what they were from, who they were from.
Psychometry.
Right, but I had no idea what I was doing. And she would put me in hypnosis. I'd go back into time. I'd go back into her life. And I would get visions of people around, and I would tell her things. But I had no idea what it was about. And she would talk to me, and at the time I didn't know what it was, but I was astral projecting. And I could look down and see, and I saw a man standing in the doorway listening. And when I asked her about it days later, she said there was no man there when I described him. She goes, that was my ex-husband. He's been dead for years. So she was like opening me up to all this.
Yeah,
and
that's a little dangerous, Debbie, no?
Yeah. Well,
and that's unethical, too. I mean,
Right.
unless you're meddling around in your...
It was. But
Psyche.
she was very curious, and it was for her, for her stuff, which was not healthy. And it was during that time things started happening to me very fast. And I remember coming home. I had been sick in the hospital, and I was on nothing but like an antibiotic. I had an infection or whatever. And I was laying on the bed, and I saw this creepy creature. And it was about this big, and it was the ugliest. And I don't watch scary movies, so it's not, it was just... And I remember feeling that same suffocating feeling, like... And I remember my friend was in the other room, and I was saying to her, I told her to go downstairs, I wouldn't go downstairs. And I was petrified. She left. She goes, I'm not staying here. You're crazy. You got that stuff again. And that's when I begged her, please just take this one. I don't know what this is, and I don't want this gift. I don't want this. Because I didn't, and I think what was happening was, what I was told many years later by somebody, he said, you're what we call a natural medium. You don't have any training. You don't know the difference. All you need to know is protect yourself with white light. And he said, what happens is you're a natural, so you're a magnet, because you don't know, you're innocent to it. The good can come to you, but so can the negative, because you're like primed for them, like, oh, we can get to her because she doesn't know, and I think because we were playing in that area where,
my grandmother was a very powerful psychic trance medium, and she learned and conveyed to me that she used to wash her hands after each session. And really this idea of, I guess, cleansing and leaving behind what you've been messing around with.
That's important, yeah.
Stick in the white light. Well, in what way is are your experiences or your communications different, or perhaps are they similar to what we see on television and in the media? I mean, does it bear any resemblance to what you're experiencing? Or?
Bits and pieces. The media, of course, has to hype it because they've got to get the people to watch it. So they're going to add to it. They're going to make it sensational. You know, I don't think people are just walking around picking up on people and reading them in the stores. It's just not. You just don't do things like that. You know. So, and it doesn't really work that way. I mean, even if I'm picking up something, I'm not going to go up and say to someone, it's not my place.
Well, it's interesting
Yeah.
because my next question was, are you concerned about the impact that your work may have on your clients and how they may react after coming to see you? I mean, it's a responsibility, isn't it, Debbie? I mean, are you ever concerned about that? And do you, pick and choose? Do you ever hold back and not give certain information, or do you, are you afraid they may act in a certain way on the basis of what you've told them, or?
No, because I always tell them nothing I say is written in stone, that they still have free will, and I don't tell them what they have to do, I just open them up to things, and I always say you have free will and you have choice. So God gave you free will, it's one of the greatest gifts. So no matter what I say, it doesn't mean it's going to be that way or it has to be that way. You still have a choice, and you still have things, there's different things happening throughout. Like, and I always ask, when I ask to give a message, I'll say, if, it's something of a warning, show me it in a positive way so you could help them. Like, I remember for a man, I kept getting this dark energy. I think he was like a police chief or something, and his wife or somebody told him to come, and it was kind of like he didn't really want to be there, and he was like making a joke about me, and I'm like, whatever. And I kept getting this, like I wasn't seeing much for him. I'm like, well, I'm not going to say I don't see a future. That's not a good thing. And I said, please just show me something that I can help him with. And I got like this beat up old red truck, and I said to him, do you have a red pickup truck? He goes, yeah, honey, but I use it for the dump. It's not even, used. I said, oh, all right, just check your brakes. He goes, yeah, okay. I go, well, that's what I want to let you know. Just check your brakes. And a few days later, he called me. He goes, I thought you were a nut. He said, I was going to go to the dump. He said, something made me go, let me just open up my, the engine and check. And
yeah.
He said his brake line was cut.
Oh, wow.
But you see how he had free will. He could have just kept thinking I was a nut and going, yeah, that lady's crazy, and got in his truck and maybe something happened. But he chose to go,
I'll check
let me just see. Maybe there's something to her. So that's what I mean is you have choice. No matter who we are, you have choice. So I don't feel I have any power over anybody. Everybody has free will and choice. And I always encourage them to go what feels right, to trust their own God. Like I always tell everybody, you already have your answers. You have to just listen. To me, praying, and I don't mean it in a religious way, any way you choose to pray, is talking to God, talking to the universe. But meditating is listening. And when you go, and we don't listen enough, when we meditate and quiet our minds and go within, you get answers, you get messages for yourself. And I think that's what people need to do, is more listen
So
to their
really
inner
you're
voice.
just sort of amplifying what's sort of in the package?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, interesting. Well, how do you handle skeptics and skepticism about your work, especially if, so many people are afraid of psychics, or they think you're a total nut or you're a con. So how do you handle skeptical clients and also the negative perceptions of being a sensitive?
Well, like if it's a client or whatever, or, I just say you don't have to believe in me. I just want you to believe in spirit. I want you to, I'm trying to not want you to believe, but open you up to believe in a higher power, open you up to believe in that there's more to life than what you see. It's not about me. I'm just going to give you the message. And usually if they're skeptics, I just ask the universe, show me what it is they're meant to see. And usually they get zapped. So
Really, just to get,
I'm like, all
when
right.
you least expect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be skeptics, and no matter what, and I just feel that's their choice, and when they're ready to come around, they will. And I've seen it.
Timing is everything.
Yeah, I've seen it in so many. I laugh because I've had people come up to me and tell me, "Oh, I think what you do is crazy," this and that, not believing. And years later, they come to become my clients, and then they become my best clients. So yeah.
And they've seen the light,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively. Well, are your experiences and how you interact with your gift different now with maturity and with experience than they were at first? I mean,
Yes.
yeah.
I don't care so much now what anyone else thinks. This is what I am. Where before I wouldn't tell people. I remember saying to somebody asked me, I was out somewhere, so what do you do? And I said, well, I do energy work. So he said, oh, you work for the electrical company? I go,
Like Con Ed?
right, yes, exactly. Well, in Connecticut, it was CLMP at the time. I said, yeah, right. I was like, we'll just let that one go. But now I'm more open to, it's like if they don't have to believe, and I don't have to explain myself. So I'm
You're more comfortable with yourself
it is
in your
what
own
it is.
skin.
Yeah.
Does it come any easier with time? Is it practice? I mean, do you know how to tap into whatever you're tapping into, or is it any quicker or easier?
I think I trust it now. I've learned to just trust and go with it, and to get not to let my
Debbie get in the way,
yeah,
in
your
other words.
analytical side get in the way. Just kind of go. I always say it doesn't have to make sense to me. It's for that person. Like I'll say things that I think are crazy. I remember going to work, a woman walked in the room and I kept getting, hello, gorgeous, hello, gorgeous. I'm not going to say that to her. What does she even think of me? She's never met me before. And I just kept getting, hello, gorgeous, hello, gorgeous. I finally said to her, I'm sorry, please don't take this wrong, but I meant to tell you hello, gorgeous. And she started crying and she said, my husband died in the 9/11, and whenever I walked in a room, he wouldn't call me by name, he would say, hello, gorgeous. So you see, but I got in my own way. And I was like, I don't want to say that, but it wasn't about me.
So that's why when you say
Yeah.
a medium, you really are the medium through
Yeah.
which this flows,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I'm just the middleman.
Just
Yeah.
So we're getting to the end of my long list of questions. How do you utilize your talent? I mean, what forms do you take? I think you work in healing because you're with energy, but do you ever do any haunting work or missing people or life counseling? I think you probably do.
I do
right?
a lot of helping people work through their lives and get through different areas of their life. I have people that come on a regular basis for energy work and just for balancing and, clarity about their own lives. I don't usually get into the haunting parts, but I will do, I will help with missing people. I've done that. And, cases like that I have worked with, police departments. And they're usually the ones that make fun of it. My son's a cop, so of course he makes fun of it. But they'll still ask me, But I do it more for the healing, helping the person go to that next level, whatever it is. And sometimes people don't want to heal. So I always ask for whatever that person is ready for.
Well, when you're doing energy work, you mentioned for balance and this and that. Do you need to be rebalanced from time to time? Do people go off on track? I mean, how do you know you need rebalancing? Can you sense it, or?
Yeah, well, think about it. I mean, like I said, we're spirits, we're having a human experience, but we're always got crazy. Life is drama, it's crazy. We're always in that crazy part. So when you have energy work done, it helps you feel centered, helps you clear the clutter. And you feel clearer, you feel stronger, it will shift your energy, it'll shift your spirit, whether you might have, you might purge and cry a lot or pee a lot, but what you're doing is releasing stuff you don't need and you balance out. So I think everybody benefits from energy work, and you can do it on yourself. You don't have to go to somebody for energy work, but it's relaxing when you go to somebody, and it helps people feel clear. It depends on the person.
Now tell me about Reiki, because you teach
I
the
teach
Reiki
Reiki,
method.
yeah.
Reiki, and what exactly is Reiki?
Well, it's a form of healing. It's an ancient technique of the laying of hands. You don't have to touch the person,
no.
but you could work above them, but you can also touch. So, and it's evolved so much now. I mean, back when I learned it forever ago, there wasn't much. There were a lot of books on it. It wasn't really talked about. People didn't understand it, but it's much more accepted now. And to me, it's a healing modality.
Can anybody do it? I mean,
Anybody
you
could
can
learn.
teach-
Anybody
learn.
can, yeah.
But I would think that somebody who has a higher degree of sensitivity, such as yourself, would be a much better practitioner, or
Not
no?
necessarily. If you're open and you're there, see, I do it in a different way. I don't just do Reiki. I do other types of energy work besides that, and I use it in an intuitive way because I'll talk to them throughout a regular Reiki session. There's usually no talking in it, and it's usually just
manipulation or whatever.
Yeah, and balancing out. Like if people work on someone in a hospital, you're not going to talk to them. You're there just to give them that relaxation and help them with whatever, wherever that person is ready for. So,
Well, my final question is basically, what do you think is your purpose and why you? Why do you think, Debbie, why did you get the call?
not sure why I got the call, but I think my purpose is to grow spiritually for myself, because no matter what I'm helping, when I'm working on someone else, it's helping me too, because I grow spiritually when I'm working with people. So I think it's for me to evolve, for me to grow in my spirituality, for me to get comfortable in
And help other people
Yeah.
along the way.
and help people get comfortable with themselves and learn to love themselves and learn to grow, whatever level they're ready to grow.
Well, that's a pretty big task and a very valuable one that we can all partake of. And since I just got worked on, I'm a convert for sure. So I thank you for your time, and
Thank you.
I'll be back.